can't help myself. I play too much. Check this out. So this week, instead of dropping one episode, we're going to give you and compile the best of the moments that you may have missed from the first 10 episodes, ranging from Vernon Davis to Chuck Pagano. So in the meantime, go follow us on Instagram at Athletes Unplugged and go subscribe to Athletes Unplugged. And on Twitter, you can give us a follow at Athletes Unplugged. That's it. So go check us out. New format this week, and it should be fun.
Kudos to you, man. You've had a great career. So you get drafted. You're in San Fran, and obviously you had some moments in San Fran, some legendary moments that everyone talks about. The first one I want to talk about is the catch 3. Some dubbed it the catch 3. Clearly, the catch 3. If you're fans of the 49ers, you understand Joe Montana, Dwight Clark was number 1. T.O. Terrell Owens, his catch was number 2. And let's talk about that catch against the New Orleans Saints. It was 2011, 2012 playoffs, 3rd and 3, 12 seconds to go in the game. Do you remember that play? Because I remember where I was, and I was just as happy as you were when you caught that ball. Do you remember what was going in? What was happening in the huddle? Did you know? Were you the first read? What was going through your mind before that play happened? And what actually did you know you were primed to make a big play during that time?
You know what? During that time, I knew how much. I started to think about all the things that we went through as a team, and from the start, from me getting drafted to San Francisco, I started even thinking about college days. And to me, that was the work, that was the preparation that I had put in to get to that moment, right? And I knew how bad my teammates wanted, so I knew it was gonna fall on my back. We had put that play in practice, and I had a feeling it was going to be called. And when it was called, I just kept saying to myself, I said, "You only get one shot. You only get one shot." It was that Eminem. It was like that Eminem song, just ringing in my mind. It was just going off in my mind over and over and over. And as a kid, it's you always want to make that game-winning shot. It's nothing like that game-winning shot when everybody you make the shot and everybody's jumping on your back, lifting you up. And that's what happened. You know, it was a great moment for the San Francisco 49ers, for that team, for myself. And that moment is something I'll always cherish. I'll never forget that moment because I'll relive that experience over and over because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I mean, it's not every day you wake up and you're making that game-winning shot. And to me, that was that game-winning shot.
No doubt. We, like you mentioned, as kids playing sports, we dream about making that big play at that big moment, and you're the guy that everyone's screaming for, and you become overwhelmed with tears. I remember watching it. I was in LA at the time. I watched every second of that game. And when you caught that pass, when you scored, like I think I dropped a tear. I was so proud because I seen you put in the work. I had seen how much of an influence you were to Devontae, to your community, to DC. I felt that. I felt like I had caught the pass. So, again, you had a lot of moments with the 49ers. So let me ask you this. I think I've asked you this before. I consider you a smart player. Do you have, some players that you when you met, you was like, man, this guy is sharp as hell, man, on the field? Because we get a bad rap. We get a bad rap of being dumb jocks, and you don't play as long as you did if you're not a smart guy. Are there any other guys that when you met him and played, when you were like, man, this guy's sharp, he has it?
D-Butt.
No doubt.
D-Butt was always sharp to me. I think we make each other better though too, because
I got a question. You just
we think differently, but when we come together, like it kind of makes sense because we always piggybacking off each other. It's
yes.
I wouldn't have thought of that, and I'm like, yeah, because whoop, such and such. Yeah. So, D-Butt, he probably was one of the smartest players I've been around. Anybody?
So let me ask you this. So playing safety in the league, and I listened to your Be a Pro podcast before you became assistant coach. You were interviewing DRC, and I remember y'all talking about a pick that he had and the nonverbal communication between the two of you pre-snap.
Yeah.
Because I played linebacker and I dealt with that with D linemen, I've never asked you this, and I've always wondered, what is that communication like when you said you had Champ Bailey on one side, you had Chris Harris in the slot, you had DRC over here, and then you in the post. Like, what is that like? Like, what is the nonverbal communication like? I don't know. If let's say he was playing cover 3 and he's going to jump something. Can you walk me through a scenario where that's happened and it worked out?
So it worked out a lot. It worked out with all 3 of them, actually. Champ Bailey, Chris Harris, and DRC. Because one thing about it, like, and I want to bring it back to this real quick, OTAs. That's why OTAs is important. All of those guys was at OTAs with me. And we was there together. And you build that
so chemistry. You have time to make mistakes and time to iron things out.
Yeah, and when the game is on, it's easy because Champ Bailey, he used to be like this. He nod his head like, yo, like that.
Okay.
He'd do a subtle. Okay. And DRC would do the same thing, but DRC like this. He animated. He like, yo,
right. That's what's up, man.
The most subtle is Chris. Chris be like, yo.
But what kind of stress does that put on a strong safety / free safety? You know, you guys are interchangeable.
There's no stress.
I always wondered what that was like, because I've had conversations with like a guy like Zach Kerr when we was in Indy, because he was so nimble and good with his hands. Sometimes I would tell him, hey, bro, go make a play. I'll play off of you. And there's not many guys that I could say that to, but Zach Kerr was one of those guys. Sean Rogers was one of those guys in Cleveland. A few other guys that my mind can't think of right now, but I always wondered what that non-communication was like, and what did that look like in the meeting room? Let's say it didn't work out. What is that like? Are you guys on the same page? Like, I'm not going to, because you know how it is in the meeting room. If somebody busted the coverage.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't throw nobody in the bus, or like if it don't happen the way we want, we'll be like, "Hey, coach, that's my fault. I take responsibility."
But you had a better recruit though. But could you do that with a younger mob at corner? And
with Joe Hayden, I did. With Joe Hayden.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he was just super athletic. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
How could you not trust him? Go ahead, do what you do. Go. You know, he's just
And I remember DRC saying when you were interviewing him on your podcast, Be a Pro, he said, you know what, you gave me the freedom to play within the system. And I think that's what makes you what's going to make you a great coach, because once you get the transition part down on how to communicate, how to, articulate and verbalize certain techniques, I think that's what makes former players great coaches and potentially front office and management. So, with that being said, do you see yourself in the front office one day of an NFL franchise?
I do. I see myself. Some days I see myself as a head coach. Sometimes I see as a GM. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I'm gonna never be content. I'm always gonna be trying to grow. And I think I owe that to, every person that look up to me. Every black and brown person that's trying to get in a, higher position. Young kids that's looking up to me, period. Like, or just players like, yo, just keep going.
Right.
I gotta keep growing, That's
like they mess with all the freshmen, and then lights out, Sean was over here. They ain't fool with you. Because for the very first, what was that, in training camp, when we all had to introduce ourselves, like anything else, you say your name, your position, where you're from. But, I talked about it on your podcast, like you decided to tell everybody you was going to be leaving school in 3 years and you was going to be a top draft pick. And it came true. So let me ask you, did you know most of the guys on the team, or was that something you had already planned? Like, listen, I'm telling these folks I'm going to be out of here. Because it takes an extreme amount of confidence to walk into a new situation, new environment. Listen, you were all everything in college, and to walk into Maryland, which was down the street from you, that was big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it was for me. Obviously, I was a cocky, mother, whatever back then.
You was confident, you know.
Yeah, I was confident, but you know what breeded my confidence was my work, and then also too, I had a chip on my shoulder from where I came from, and I was down to school, down the street from the school. So I had a little chip on my shoulder. Anyway, the other thing is that I got the kind of the privilege to come in and meet like LeVar Arrington and Ray Lewis. So I was around those guys already, right? So when I'm talking about if they went somewhere, I was going with them, right? If they did something, I was around them. So being and seeing that at an early age, I was like, you know what, I'm here. I feel like I can do this, and so that for me was kind of the breeding of confidence, and some people. So the thing is, some people think a lot of stuff, and then I was just willing to say it because that was really the only difference. A lot of people thought real super highly of themselves. A lot of people did. You thought you was the baddest, or this person thought they were the best, or this person thought they was the fastest, but nobody will come out and say it. I think that by me kind of manifesting that in my own mind, I think that I was saying it to hold myself accountable. Right. I think that because if you put yourself in that platform, you let it be known, you can never let yourself slip. Right. You can never dog sprints. You can never, not go hard.
Yeah, you worked hard. I tell you that. You were one of the hard. You and Vernon, I tell you, listen, I was trying to just keep up. But between you and Vernon, I've never been around two guys who competed on the field, off the field, in the weight room, in the class, not more so the classroom. We're going to leave that out. But everything else. Everywhere else, you guys competed y'all tail off, man. So what type of, you mentioned LeVar Arrington and Ray Lewis, to have an influence like that growing up as a child and them basically being in your backyard. LeVar was with the Washington football team at the time. And clearly, Ray Lewis was in Baltimore. What type of influence was that? Because I remember being this young, quiet kid from obedient little, kid from Florida. And when I get around Sean Mayer, I'm like, what the heck? This is a grown ass man. So your mentor was on a different level, man. Can you talk about just the effects that guys like that would have on a young person's career? Because you were extremely successful.
You know what, Quell? What it did was it opened your eyes up to a lot of stuff. Because I don't know, about you, but where I'm from, ain't no pro athletes was around us. Like I didn't have an outreach. Nobody, no pro athlete came back and talked to our kids' camp. No pro athlete came back to my neighborhoods or anything like that. Because when that doesn't, and this is why I go back so much to Maryland, while I'm doing my coat drive, while I'm doing this, and I stay around people because I might, just by being around them or them seeing me around or doing certain thing or just being in the presence of being able to see somebody operate might change the course of their life. Because that's what happened in a sense with LeVar and Ray, right? I seen what it was to be a pro athlete. I seen how they worked. I seen where they eat, with what they ate, where they ate at. I seen the places they went. The reason why I bought my first G-Wagon is because of LeVar Arrington. LeVar, my sophomore year in high school, rolled up on our field, like literally drove up on our football field right before the game. I'm warming up, I'm hyping up the team. I look over, and LeVar Arrington got his G-Wagon in the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you know what? One day I want a G-Wagon. I wanted to go. I wanted to go get the G-Wagon, but you don't think any of that stuff is possible until you are around it. So that's why
touch it and feel it. Right.
You touch it. You see it on. We growing up. We watched BET and Rap City and in the basement and all this other stuff. You don't know that any of these things are possible until you see it. And I seen it at an early age. And that between the chip on my shoulder, me being raised in the environment I was raised in, and now getting a chance to see Ray Lewis, see LeVar Arrington. Now you're like packaging all this stuff together. And that's why I was, kind of had that mindset at an early age.
Right. Yeah. So you speak about the influence that they had on you, but I can tell you this, the guys that when you left school early, 2005, and you were drafted 12th overall, that year when you won Defensive Rookie of the Year, all of us, that gave us confidence that we can not only still do what we were doing in college, but we could actually be successful and Defensive Rookie of the Year. We watched you like a hawk, and you gave us motivation. Like the time you came back before, I believe it was before the draft, you showed up, rolled up in the SL 500. that to me was everything. I had never been in a luxury car that expensive before in my life. And to the point you made about actually being able to see and experience and see what Ray Lewis and LeVar, how they operated and how they were pros, you did that for us. Like, you were my motivator. I'm like, man, if Sean can do it, I know I can do it. I know I can do this. Crazy.
And that's the attitude you should have.
Yeah.
But you know, to your point, you know, if you never around it, you don't think it's possible, right? I mean, it's just what it is. And fortunately, and I was in a situation to be blessed to see that early on, right? And like in high school. So I walked in with this, you know, I had this pro mentality as a college player. Just like I had a pro because of him.
He wasn't pushy. He wasn't trying to like say he wanted to be my friend first. So once we developed that communication, I walked into his office one day, and this story is I mean, it just, he finally opened my eyes. It was like, why not? You know, you got this, that, and the other going on. Like, it probably would be beneficial for you to step outside of yourself, the norm. And first I thought he was crazy as hell, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And I remember calling him like, I'm going, I'm doing it. And I remember getting like 15, 20 shots. And after the fifth one, I'm like, man, I don't know if this, but I did it. But I did it. And it was the most impactful moment of my life. I met some great friends who I'm still in touch with today. Jaime Flores, who's a doctor down in Miami, former Terp, Marco Avila. I met some great, phenomenal people that just wanted to do good. And when you're around those people in that environment, you sacrifice everything to go. This isn't a tourist attraction. You know, you go there to help. Far from it. And the legacy that you leave behind, the fact that the school is still in touch, has been remarkable. But can you talk about how that relationship, once you were able to build the structure, get the school running, how did that marriage or a relationship with University of Maryland and the engineering student body kind of come in play?
Well, it's one of those things where you build it, but you originally don't know the impact you will have or how you will continue to move forward. But I realized I had to tap into the pre-existing relationships that I already have. And one of the things I remember, I wrote in, I keep a journal, and I write in it sometimes random things, not understanding exactly how things are going to connect. But years later, I like to look back and see. So around that time, I wrote connection between Prince George's County. I had my foundation in the middle, connection between Prince George's County, University of Maryland. But I didn't know how those two things will connect. And I have to give credit to Daryl Pines, who is now the president of the University of Maryland. He approached me while he was the dean of the engineering department and said, hey, let's go to lunch. At first, I was very reluctant to do it. And I ended up just going just to be respectful. And we had a great conversation, and he had a great heart. And he told me, he said, listen, I know what you're trying to do, and I want to partner with you. And this is the vision I have, but I want to hear your vision first and see if we can work together. And I left the meeting so encouraged by what President Pines said during that time, that I knew that the partnership was going to work, because he told me, I'm committed. I'm committed to what you're doing. I like what you're doing. It's not about you. I know that. It's about the mission. It's about building communities and making things better. And from that, we just meet at least every 6 months, and we kind of sketched out how we go about doing it. And we've been in partnership for the last 8-9 years, man. It's been phenomenal. Not only have the students at the University of Maryland School of Engineering benefited, but public health has also benefited. And one of my greatest joy is when I watch the University of Maryland on television, and they talk about the impact that the University of Maryland is making as a university.
It's powerful.
And they show like what the university is doing, whether they're in the computer lab or in the field. There's always a 5-second image of what's going on in Sierra Leone. Most people probably don't even realize what they see.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is a snapshot of our school, and the students at the University of Maryland are working with our kids, working with the school, installing solar panels, doing a water filtration system.
So the kids, the student students are making the trip to Sierra Leone
every summer. Yeah,
that is amazing. That just gave me chills.
Yeah,
because I tell my wife all the time. I tell her about this trip. The first trip I ever made to Sierra Leone, I think, was 2010, and it still resonates with me to this day. I can still put myself back in that environment, back in those little kids, and playing with them and teaching them how to use a pencil sharpener and teaching them, they didn't know how to use a pencil sharpener. I mean, that's the type of, impact that you've had. Imagine that kid that didn't know how to use a pencil sharpener or a number 2 pencil, what she's taught the next generation coming before her. That is a legacy that you can't, that's more impactful than giving money. That's time, right. That's legacy. That is something that, I don't have the word for it. But I tell my wife all the time, it's like when my son gets old enough, because he lives a charmed life, nothing wrong with that. But at some point when he's able to understand why mommy and daddy work so hard and you're able to take trips and eat and go wherever and wear nice clothes, you need to he's going to Sierra Leone. Yeah. He's going to that school. He needs to see kids just like himself that, because he's going to have the same, it affects you. It really affects you because you don't fathom. If you read a book about it, if you see pictures about it, it's completely different than planting yourself in that environment. And to see someone like yourself not only make something of themselves, to just the impact, that's what all of us want to leave behind as a legacy. How will we be remembered? And I think it speaks volumes to, you have, very affluent people that attend University of Maryland. And the fact that the engineering group and the president decided this is important for our kids to not only give back, to find creative ways to improve lives and education and healthcare of these young people at this school, but to actually make a trip and go there. Kudos to you, man. That's impactful.
Thank you, man. And I also say kudos to President Pines, man, because years ago when we had that conversation, like I mentioned, it was kind of like in one ear out the other, and not realizing how impactful and where it was going to lead. And years later, when I look back, it's just, it brings a smile on my face that kid from Sierra Leone that came here at 9 years old is able to go back and bring resources into the community. Yes, Sierra Leone. To me, that's what it was all about. And it made me realize that I came in full circle in terms of me going to University of Maryland. It made me feel like it was bigger than just what I did on the football field.
Yeah. Homeschooled my last half of 8th grade and first half of 9th grade. And it's named my younger brother who was in 6th grade at the time. So we got both pulled out of middle school because our mom was getting in trouble. My mom and my dad were educators in the Broward County school system. So they like, hey, you're not about to embarrass me. Yeah, we're not about to embarrass me. That's not what we're doing. Pulled us out of school, and I was begging to get back in school. I mean, I wanted some homework. I wanted some, because this was before cell phones, social media.
Right. So all the interaction was face to face.
It was, man. That was tough. So it was just me and my brother for about a good year, actually, where we just was completely out of school. But I went back to Cold Springs Charter, and it was such a new program. It's tough to build a football program. So I started playing basketball for my freshman year. And then finally my junior year, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out for the football team. And I had a coach, Otis Mounds, who coached me, Mike Higgins and Otis Mounds. But Otis Mounds put me to the side one time. He was like, hey man, you 5'9", you 5'10". Yeah. Like, I know you love the hoop. I know you love basketball, but it ain't too many 5'9", 5'10s in the NBA.
Well, that's the same thing happened to me, boy. Yeah. Oh my God. When you had that conversation with a coach, like, listen, man, because my first love was basketball. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to the league. I wanted to go to the league and be in the NBA, bro. Because I wanted to be AI. Oh, no doubt. I got a cousin that played overseas for, 10 plus years, 6'9", his mother 6'2". I got aunts over 6 foot. You see me, bro. I've been the same size since I was like in 8th grade. I just stopped growing. I thought for sure I was going to hit at least 6
if I hit that growth spurt.
Yeah. And I love football or love basketball, but I had that conversation as well with a high school coach. It's like, listen, you got to draw a line in the sand, young man. It's like, what you want to do? You're really good at football, but this basketball, you're playing 1 through 5 and you're 6 foot. That ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
Not at this high school. So that's how it happened for me, man. So
that's how it happened for a lot of us. That's how it happened for a lot of us.
And a lot of those skills are transferable to your position.
Definitely, especially
so you start playing football in high school. Clearly, you were able to have enough of an impact on the field to earn you scholarships. Now, were you one of those guys that were highly touted? Back in the day, I remember in Florida. I was in Florida as well. Like Tom Lemon was everything. It was like whether you were 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 5-star. Like, did you have?
I wasn't even really that cognizant, that really aware of like that. I was paying attention to Rivals a little bit. Rivals was kind of taking off, and I was like a 1.5, maybe a 2-star, but I didn't go to a bunch of camps, like football camps. I didn't go to a lot of those things that a lot of football players are doing during like my basketball season. You know what I mean?
That was the thing to do back then.
Yeah, that was my thing. But like, yes, that's how people got ranked and all these different things. But I wasn't doing any of that. So, and then once again, this was still before like, social media and things like that. And it's easier to get lost in the sauce, when you're down here in South Florida, because we pumping out Division I athletes left and right. So my coach, Otis Mounds, he actually grew up with the running backs coach that was at UConn, and that was from Fort Lauderdale as well. They kind of grew up together, and he kind of was like, hey, I got a guy here who the real deal. Nobody know about it because we at Coral Springs. I mean, when I tell you, like, we didn't have our own stadium. We barely had the resources to be able to compete.
So if I could interrupt you for 1 second, like I assume, listen, I grew up 4 hours north of Miami. So I assume every high school in Miami, Fort Lauderdale area is a powerhouse. And I live, so in my mind, I'm thinking like you went to a powerhouse school and, because you're from Florida, that Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, you just
I was the first Division I athlete from my school. Any sport.
Wow. Okay.
The first Division I athlete. So when I was in high school and I used to tell other people, like I go to the neighborhood gym or go somewhere else, like, damn, where you play at? I'm like, I play charter. Like charter? Like what is that? Because my school was actually converted into a high school from a mall that nobody even really went to. Yeah. So like the location of my high school, I had never been anywhere kind of even near that vicinity. Like that was probably 15 to like 17 minutes away from where I actually lived. So it was crazy, and not only from the athletic standpoint, but even the academic standpoint. Like it was because we didn't have the same rules or laws as public schools or private schools. So a lot of the teachers didn't really, so it was very, very different. And I had some, opportunity to go and play at, especially after my junior year. That's when all the other big schools was kind of like, how it is behind the scenes. A lot of recruiting going on. So I literally had high school coaches in my living room. Hey, we need to come here. We need to do it. It was crazy, but I'm glad I went through it that way. And then it kind of going to UConn, and UConn kind of been a basketball school and not been a football school. I kind of dealt with a lot of the same things on the college level that I dealt with in high school. So it definitely
me and him just didn't see eye to eye, man. And at that time, I was like, man, fuck it. I was coming off my knee injury, and I'm like, man, to hell with this, dog. Like I'm gonna finish the season because I'm not gonna quit on my teammates because they expected me to be here, even in the capacity of just returning kicks. So I just go back to returning kicks or whatever the hell, and whatever happened. And so fast forward, and that summer we get out, and I go down to my godmom is like, so I hear that you taking acting classes. I'm like, yeah, I think I want to kind of get into this entertainment thing. So she like, well, I want to take you down. I'm gonna take you and your godbrother down to Miami, and I'm gonna introduce you to a couple people. I want y'all to.
That's big for a family member to, because you had spent, your years in college, again, football, and you thinking about other things past football. So yeah, Please continue.
So she takes us down to Miami, and she gets us the passes, and we doing that whole thing. And so then at that specific year, Will Packer was at the festival, and so we went to this event, and I saw Will Packer, and he was talking about his trajectory on how he started at FAMU, and him and his partner, I think Robert something, I forget his last name, but him and his partner and how they started, and then the first movie that they did, which was Trois, and then how it evolved from there, and then they become, they get this big opportunity to do Think Like a Man with Steve Harvey, and then that movie gross $100 million and blah 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 blah. So at that point, I start being a student of the film game. I'm like, if I'm gonna get into this, I gotta be as intentional as I was with football, right? So when I lined up against somebody, from week to week, I knew your tendencies, I knew what you did,
no
what
doubt,
you didn't do, how you open your hips. If he opened his hips, if he didn't, on kick returns, I knew if I'm running left and I return it and I really intended it and turn it on the right, I gotta push left and then go right. So like I knew
okay, I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was very intentional.
Right. You're a student of the game.
I'm a student, so I said if I'm gonna be in this, I'm gonna be a student of this. So I made it my business to learn every black director, every black producer, every black film house. And then I was like, okay, now you know the black stuff. Now you need to learn the white stuff. So I'm like, okay, I need to know who's connected to who is Warner Media, who is this, who is that, and I needed to know who the executives. Like I needed to learn everything. So I made it intentional. So I'm like, I was very intentional in learning early in the game, like who was the right one to talk to.
Right. I mean, being able to, flex that muscle of playing quarterback to now you're considered one of the greatest returners to play in the National Football League.
Man,
what does that mean to Josh Cribbs, man?
You know what? It's surreal, DQ. It's surreal because just to be mentioned with the greats is good enough before even having an opportunity. Like man, you telling me I play recess every day, football for recess. So when I talk to kids, I tell them, look, I got paid millions of dollars to go to recess. Because that's what playing for the Browns was like. It was like recess.
Right.
Like we got to do what we love to do for a job. And they paid us well. So to be the best of the best in a sport, I was overlooked. After I wasn't drafted. After I was passed on. And to, even for college, it brings everything to full circle. My career brings everything into fruition. I also become a story for others, that weren't drafted, that think that it's over once they had to be a free agent, that they can't fight for something more, that they can't be great. All the draft picks are not the only ones that end up being great.
And speaking of, let's go back to some of your great moments you had that were historical. And I had a chance. There's two instances. There's two scenarios. There was one against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know where you're going with this because I know you talked about it ad nauseum, but it's one of the greatest returns I've ever witnessed. It was in November. I believe it was 2007 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is the year we won 10 games. And not only was it a great return, but the situation of the game made it even greater because we were down 21-24. It was a high stakes game. We're down 21-24. And the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, they know it's like, listen, we have to face this guy twice a year. We're not kicking to him. They made it their business not to kick to you. And on this particular instance, what I'm talking about is they squibbed it. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I figured you correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like you intended to catch it off the bounce, off the squib.
Yes.
It touches your hands, flips over your head. Now the ball is on the 1 yard line. The timing is all screwed up from the R5, L5, all the blocking is all screwed up. Somehow, if you don't pick it up, there's two things going to happen. Either they tackle you on the one, it's an easy score for Pittsburgh, or you pick it up, it's a safety, they tackle. Nothing good is going to come out of this. Somehow you were able to dodge 4 or 5 guys, tiptoe on the sideline, return it for 100 yards. One of the greatest returns I've ever witnessed. And tell me what goes through someone like you. did you have time to think about it, or was just something that you were just reacted to? And
you know what? It was a little bit of both. I tell you this, I remember like it was yesterday too. So I did want to catch it. I knew they were going to squib it. I tried to be smarter than, I thought I was. Try to catch the ball at a certain point before they, I tried to make the squib not work. And that's how I hit my hands. I tried to catch it. I mistimed it. So as soon as it tipped off my hands, I ran back to the ball, and I immediately a calmness came over me. And I'm like, don't panic. I'm like, that's the only thing I couldn't do. We were well coached. You got to remember, we are a well coached special teams unit. I'm like, don't panic. One thing happens, DQ, when a ball doesn't get kicked the way it's supposed to get, not only is the kick return team in a disarray, but the kickoff team becomes in a disarray too. The one thing that happens that a lot of people don't understand when a ball is squibbed is that the kickoff team, they abandon their assignments because the ball is muffed. Everybody wanted to go to the ball. True. So I'm running to the ball in the corner. Everybody just running to the ball, like free for all, abandoning their assignments. It was a little slick out there. It was like October or something like that, November, something like
November.
It was
Cold
slick,
as hell.
little rain, a little sleet rain. You know them days.
Yeah.
And I remember just calmness coming over me, like, look, I'm just don't want to make it worse. Like, it's just football, it's a game. Like, I'm like, worst thing that can happen, I get tackled. I felt like the worst thing already happened. Me dropping the ball and then rolling back there. I'm like, that's the worst right here. So I can only make it better. So I picked it up, DQ, and then I blacked out and I don't remember nothing else.
So I have to go back to some of the questions because that's why we're here.
Okay.
So EB has another question. Let's see. Can you see it? Can you see the question on here?
Yes.
So
yes,
EB says, can you tell everyone how you use the Jumbotron to help you during kickoff return? That's a hell of a question.
Man, and a lot of people don't realize that. So I didn't know. Okay, so my first touchdown, my first kick return touchdown against the Lions, I caught the ball, right? So as I'm breaking it, I see myself in the Jumbotron running. And I'm like, oh, that's me. So I'm running, and then I see R.W. McCorders, and the only reason I knew it was him because he had dreads too. He had locks. So he chasing me in the Jumbotron. I'm looking up. I'm like, oh, man, he chasing. He about to get me. I'm like, he close.
Right.
So I see him dive, and so I jump. I jump the same time that I see him dive. And then the messed up part is I didn't know that the Jumbotron and what you see on the field is like a 1 second delay.
Oh, my Lord.
I didn't know that. So I'm running, and on film, he dives. And after he dives, I give a late jump because that's when
okay, I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to go back there. I know it's on YouTube somewhere. I'm gonna have to go back to that. So you basically jumped when no one was near you. Basically.
Exactly.
Oh my Lord. I gotta go back and watch that.
He already dove. He already dove, and then I jumped, and for no reason at all. And then I'm looking up there for no reason. But I promise you, every time at our home stadium, because the Jumbotrons was right there, you could see it down the field. I would use it to run and see how things was like. I'm telling you, I used to use that Jumbotron, man. Hey, you got to use all your weapons.
That's a hell of. Hey, EB, I appreciate the question, bro, because I had no idea he used the Jumbotron when he was breaking. Like that. So, the NFL has, I talk a lot. My wife knows, and my close net of people here. We all get together, smoke a cigar, drink some Macallan, and we just solve the world's problems. You know what I mean? But, obviously the Olympics has passed us, and there was a huge, there was a lot of talk about, some Simone Biles and other people in the past dealing with emotional health. And for us, when we walked into the NFL, it was whatever goes on in this building stays in this building. My opinion about this new appreciation for the athlete, not only their bodies, but the mental side of it. What's your thoughts around that and the mental side of an athlete?
To
to be honest with you, can you hear me, Duquel?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's real. I can allude to it because I never speak about my story. Being in the league, we all get in trouble. I got in trouble somehow, by doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, and that took a toll on my mind. I thought about all of the negative things that I would want to do to myself because how people would view me and how people would talk about me. And it's not even something that's that huge of a problem in society, but that's how our culture is made. So you have to kind of walk the line. So mentally, we're kind of damaged because what we have to go through, your normal human being don't go through. The scrutiny we go under, people in this world don't get to experience. So, yes, if you mental health for any athlete at this point, because we kind of forced it, or we can't say them, but within us, we want to be great. So we kind of forced the issue to do as great as we can, which is a battle in the mind, not really on the physical side. It's in the mind.
No doubt about it. I realized that point probably, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this, in 2009 and 2010, I had 2 season-ending injuries to both of my pecs, left pec, right pec, back to back. And this was 2010, as well as this was the lockout year. And I had signed a 4-year deal coming out of college. And so I was up. I hadn't played in a year and a half. And mentally, the mental strain that it took on my body, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And for the people that look at us as puppets on the screen, tackling a different color jersey and all that, the shit is real. And I'll tell you what I had to do and when I realized I need to start investing in the mental side of the game as well as the physical is I was in IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. And there was a guy named Trevor. He works with Russell Wilson right now, but he was at IMG Academy at that moment. And he was always around the workouts, right? And he befriended a lot of us. He wasn't being too pushy. And I finally had a conversation with him and he was like, hey, once you come to my office, let's talk. And in my mind, I started asking people like, who is this guy? Like, is he like what? So he was a sports psychiatrist, but he didn't identify as that. And I never forget the first time I walked in his office, Tamba, it was like everything that I knew I should be doing, but I didn't know how to verbalize it. And he made a process of it. And we literally got on a dry eraser board and he asked me what I wanted. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do I want? And what do you want? And we wrote out everything. We made this pyramid scheme of what I wanted. And at the time, the most important thing for me was and I kid you not, a year or two later, I still keep that laminate. And anywhere I go, it was of the diagram that we created to get to that 5-year X amount of dollars a year. It was damn near, spot on. So at that moment, I realized we all train our bodies. At that moment, I realized like, man, the mental side is the edge. And so in that moment, I've been on this quest to try to find, because a lot of guys, and I know I'm talking a lot, and a lot of guys like us, man, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to create this platform is, hell, I need to pick up the phone and call Tom. I need to pick up the phone and call the guys I used to play with, because we never know what any of us are going through, because we're from that old school era where we take care of everything. It's tough love, man. So that's my experience with it. And I don't know necessarily where you fall in that line, but I know you've always been an extremely smart guy, inquisitive guy.
I mean, everything you say, I can second on, because the reality as a player, we don't get to say what we want to do. We don't have a say. We get in there, they say, oh, the bus leaves at this time. We all are on the bus. Oh, when you get there, here are the meetings. We're all there. If you have issues, it shouldn't arise at those times, especially now when you're in that building like that. And it's like, if we know injuries and then we know hurts. Like if you're hurting, you need to keep that hurt to yourself. We know you could play on Sunday. So everything, again, if we look deep in it, I'm appreciative of the NFL. I'm appreciative of the game. I love what it did for me. But if you check the history, you will know that this is not a normal idea. This is
right. We basically put our bodies in a blender week in and week out for years. I know how, as you mentioned, I know how taxing it is to play in the inside. And you played in an era where coaches didn't give a damn about a consecutive 2 days or how long they could keep you out. They wanted to run you into the ground. They wanted to see who was mentally tough and physically able to stand the grind throughout practice, and then also be asked to go out there and play on Sunday and be productive. And you did that throughout your entire career.
Absolutely. You know, it's the way the game is played now, definitely not as physically demanding, especially in training camp. I can remember when I went to the Rams in '98, Dick Vermeil was the head coach, and we used to have real 2-a-day practices. When I talk about real 2-a-day practices, it's practices were 3.5 hour long, full pads every practice. So you go 2 times in full. So we go 2-2-1. So 2-a-day, then 1-a-day practice. But we always had full pads on. There was no, hey, you're gonna be full pads in the morning, shorts and jerseys in the afternoon. No.
Right.
And they were 3.5 hour practice. I'm talking about brutal.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I would have. I mean, you have to be in a different mental space to get through it because you don't know anything differently. But like, was there any? So it's funny. I've been on those teams, and when both of our careers kind of crossed over because you played so long. So when I was drafted to the league in 2006, there was no more consecutive 2-a-day. So it was 2-1-2, and the second practice was a glorified walkthrough.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, I can handle this, because college was completely different. So my question to you is, was there anyone that you can remember in your 98 season that was probably like the stakes, how it goes, the NFL locker room where, man, it's like after a week, it's like, hey, man, we got to take the pads off. Did you have someone like a spokesman on your team that could go to Dick Vermeil and be like, hey, man, the guys are tired, man, we got to take the pads off. What can you do for us?
Hey, not only do we have one elder statesman in the locker room, we had about 20 because these guys, we almost had a revolt because the practices were so hard. We're getting ready to play, I think a regular season game, and guys are literally, we had a meeting, a players only meeting, guys talking about how hard the practices were. They didn't have any legs come game day, and they're trying to talk about going out. A few of them went to Coach Vermeil and was like, hey, Coach, you gotta scale it back. Down. I don't have any gas in the second half of the games. Coach Vermeil was like, whatever. We go like this. He just didn't. He had that old school mentality where, in his mind, the Rams, they weren't a good football team when he took over the franchise in '97. They had been losing for a long period of time. And he felt like he needed to weed out the certain type of people, certain type of players. Now, I will say this. So 98 practices were brutal. 97, they were brutal. When I heard they were worse than 97 before I got there. 98 scaled them back a little bit. 99, we win the Super Bowl. Right. And I can tell you this. We won that 99 Super Bowl because of how we were mentally and physically tough based on what we did in 98 training camp, 97 training camp, things like that. So come that Super Bowl game against the Tennessee Titans, where we got to come up with a defensive stand. We're gassed defensively, but we were so mentally tough. Right. We knew we had what it took to make one more play to win that game.
And you mentioned the 98 season. The 99 season where you guys go 13-3, and you guys were deemed the greatest show on turf with Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, Orlando Pace, and who am I missing? All these veteran guys. Mm-hmm. And you guys, so you're a big component, as it sounds like, you're a big component of, you got to go through your dog days in training camp. You got to really, really see who's in it and who's not, mentally and physically. And nowadays, I can tell you this, London, nowadays, it's a joke. It's a joke. Yeah. You go back, I spent 8 years in Cleveland, 3 years in Indy, and one of the craziest stories I've ever been a part of where, you have your rookie hazing, right? And
I was on a veteran squad with Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri and Robert Mathis, all these guys. And, you know, it was fun. It was camaraderie. You know how it is. Mm-hmm. So we had some defensive guys. We wanted to shave the head. Do you know we had 2 guys actually leave leave training camp because they didn't want to get their hair cut.
Oh, yeah.
And this were guys that we thought that could possibly help us. And it was just, man, I was like, man, you know what? This is a different league, man. Like, I'm not used to that. Like, you got all this in front of you, but your hair? Like, come on, man. Like, we weren't trying to be disrespectful on that level. It was just
and the thing is, you know, that camaraderie that's built during training camp, when you go through something together, when you really have to lean on each other to make it through a practice, to, you know, man, to get up for a practice, because, you know, those days, man, you can remember your legs are sore, your body is hurting, your body's tired. It's different now, you know. Now the coaches always telling me, you know, the coaches that are coaching now in the NFL or whatever, they're like, you can't, man, the players are different now. You can't talk to them like you used to.
You can't talk to them the way you want to talk to them.
I don't. I mean,
you would.
Man, if I'm coach, I'm gonna talk to them the way they gonna need to be talked to. So, you know, you gonna either, you know, man up and do what you need to do, or you're not. I can't sugarcoat it with you.
Exactly, and it's a grown man sport, and you know, fair criticism, it is what it is, and you separate the weak-minded from the strong-minded. Let's go back to our days in Indy, man. 2012, you know, you take over a team that's 2-14. They're no longer bringing back Peyton Manning, and now you have the whole world on your shoulders. And it's you know, you get the head coaching gig. You know, Andrew Luck, in my opinion, at that time, it's a no-brainer. He's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. But you run into, you know, what was the biggest fight of your life. You know, you got diagnosed with an acute form of leukemia. Can you touch on it, if you will, in your own words, what that moment was like for you and Tina and your family? Because I can imagine, you know, it was unexpected, and, you know, it was something that no one plans for. You know, what was that like? Just the initial, you know, I heard you do an interview talking about it briefly about, you know, it was during a bye week, no one was there, and, you know, you had to deal with it the best way you can. You know, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah,
or that journey, I should say.
It's like you know, getting hit across the head with a 2x4, because we all know people in our life dealt, you know, with cancer and heard those words. You know, you always think you're going to be the person to ever hear that or never hear that, right? So it was definitely one of those moments where you just get your dream job and you say, you know, why me? You know, you put me in this situation, and now all of a sudden you're going to throw, you know, a big hurdle at me, a huge obstacle. And, you know, I go back to, you know, the third game of the season, we're playing Jacksonville, and we're 1-1, and we take the lead. Andrew takes us down the field, and we take the lead with 56 seconds left on the clock, and we kick off to them a touchback, and they throw an 80-yard skinny post to Cecil Short, Blaine Gabbert, and we lose the game. And we have the bye the next week, and we walk in that locker room, and I said a few words, and then Robert talked like he always did. And he came in and said, look, we'll man up, we'll come in tomorrow, we'll watch this tape, we'll make the corrections, and we'll move on. And there's no pity parties in life, and there's no pity parties in football. And I remember sitting there when I went down to Simon Cancer Center that Wednesday afternoon with my wife, and Dr. Kripe looking me in the eye and saying, hey, look, I'm 99% sure that you have leukemia. You know, promyelocytic was what it was, and it's a form of leukemia. It's highly curable. We're going to do a bone marrow biopsy and blah, blah, blah. And next thing I knew, I was in the OR, and they were putting a PICC line in my arm, and then I was admitted into a room.
And that was right away?
I never got to leave. I thought, I'm like driving down there. I didn't even tell Tina. And you know, Hammer comes down along with the team, Doug Robertson, and they said, no, you need a ride. I said, I don't need a ride. This is nothing. This ain't going to be anything. I'm going to go get checked out. I'll be back in the facility, you know? And they said, no, you need a ride. So they knew the severity of it. I didn't know.
I see.
Once I got down there and met with the oncologist, Dr. Kripe, he's like, this is what it is. And you just sit back for a moment. I said, like, why me?
Right.
Tina and I are very emotional. And then I remembered what Robert said. There's no pity parties, in football, and there's no pity parties in life. And I said the same thing. I said, okay, God damn it.
Right.
Tell me what my chances are. Give me the game plan. Tell me exactly what happened. We're going to kick this thing's ass. I'm going to be around for a long, long time for my wife, my kids, and I'm going to get back to this football team. And so it was like a mindset. And we learned from playing football.
Right. I was going to say you were primed for it, because there was one thing that I heard you mention and say over and over and over again during that time. It was live in vision, not in circumstance. And
no, absolutely. And so my vision was, that I was going to beat cancer, walk two daughters, down the aisle.
Yes.
And we were going to win the Lombardi Trophy. And so, I spend so much time now, because I'm blessed to be around and gone through that, where so many people reached out to me, DQ, that I didn't know during that time and encouraged me. And now, Tina and I have an opportunity, to do the same for others. And that's my one thing I always do. Any book that, that I sign from, live in vision, not circumstance. It's easy to go to the circumstances. Well,
no doubt.
Wasn't meant to be. This is just how it's supposed to be, and it's time to check. No, get a vision, get a mindset, and then, go to work on kicking that thing's ass, whatever it is. And you can overcome anything, as long as your faith is strong and your mindset is right. But I was very, very lucky. I was at the right place at the right time, and
you did some incredible things. You did some incredible things that when I was there, I remember you actually wrote a note. I guess you got a fan letter from a guy named, I believe his name was Alex or Alex or something, about him losing his father to, battling cancer. And you wrote him a note. And the only way we all knew was because he posted it on social media, what have you. So, for the people out there listening, like you were a huge inspiration for a lot of people. And I wasn't with you at this time, but, the entire league, even people where I was in Cleveland, everyone took notice. It wasn't a coincidence that, the team shaved their heads, and cheerleaders and trainers and everyone got behind what became the Chuck Strong movement. And now you have galas to support cancer research. And it was just, things like this, you were put in that place for a reason, to inspire a lot of people. And, I'm a firm believer in, the man above doesn't put us in situations we can't handle. And you epitomized that. And so you're still an inspiration to a lot of us. And, you went on, you battle back, you address the team, I think the last week of the season or so forth. And, I show up some years later, you have nothing but winning seasons.